Every Castlevania enthusiast is well aware of how deeply beloved and multifaceted the character Trevor Belmont is within the franchise. He arguably ranks among the top 3, if not the top 5, most celebrated members of the Belmont clan, and their long-spanning history of combating nefarious forces of the night for centuries, and some more. Trevor Belmont is also the first Belmont to be successful in vanquishing Count Dracula, even if it was for a temporary period of time. This distinction definitely warranted his position as the main protagonist in the animated adaptation of the Castlevania series on Netflix, which first debuted in 2017 with 4 rich seasons that wrapped up in 2021. Fans, including myself, have been captivated by his portrayal primarily due to his intricate relationships with Cypher Bernardus and Alucard. Yet, beyond these compelling dynamics, it was Trevor's integral role within the central trio of characters that truly endeared him to the viewers, as he seamlessly integrated into the dark, gritty, and morally ambiguous atmosphere that enveloped the overarching plot of the series. Now, Trevor Belmont sharing the limelight with several other main characters within the animated series is quite a notable departure from the video games, where a Belmont typically assumes the role of the main player character. While fans of the game series may be more familiar with the likes of Simon Belmont and other members of the clan, it is important to note that Trevor does have his famed moments in the game world, making appearances in titles such as Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, and Castlevania Judgment, among others. Anyway, setting these game-related details aside, there is a wealth of intriguing aspects to Trevor Belmont's character within the entire Castlevania that you might not be aware of, and this is where we come in with our treasure trove of knowledge on the Belmont hold. So without wasting another moment, let's get right to it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it does mean a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Who is Trevor Belmont? Like all those who came before and after him in the Belmont lineage, Trevor Belmont dedicated his life to safeguarding humanity from the malevolent supernatural forces and creatures that roam the night. The Belmonts' heroics as renowned vampire hunters is no news, but Trevor's experience, however, stands out amongst his predecessors in the clan. He holds the distinction of being the very first Belmont and the first human to canonically defeat the infamous vampire lord Dracula, even within the gaming series. Now, Trevor's remarkable skills as a vampire hunter are not solely the result of rigorous training, although he was indeed well prepared for this lifelong pursuit. His success can be attributed to his upbringing within the Belmont clan during his generation, which exposed him to a distinctive atmosphere and a rich tapestry of experiences from a very tender age. Within the Castlevania animated series, Trevor Belmont is introduced as the sole survivor of the once illustrious Belmont clan, a lineage that has dedicated itself to protecting humanity from the malevolent forces of darkness under the command of the infamous Lord Dracula. However, through the years after Leon Belmont's death, a cloud of suspicion and rumors shrouded the Belmont clan with whispers of their alleged involvement in black magic, which had tainted their reputation, ultimately leading to their exile and excommunication by the church. This unfortunate turn of events resulted in the destruction of all the family members at the hands of the very people they had vowed to safeguard, leaving Trevor to fend for himself from a tender age, as his home lay in ruins. How did Trevor Belmont come to form an alliance with Cypher Bernardus and Alucard to take down Dracula? In the year 1476, Trevor's journey led him to a village pub where some of its inhabitants accused his family of dabbling in dark arts, while all he wanted was a drink. Reluctantly, he engaged in a conflict with these accusers and emerged victorious, prompting his hasty departure from this troubled village. Also, on a side note, Castlevania animated series did not hold back on showcasing gore on the screens. This entire fiasco literally started with a man ranting about how he had to impale a man who raped his livestock, and then moved on to blame the darkness of the world on the Belmont clan, later redirecting his frustration towards Trevor when he accidentally flashed his family crest to these hooligans. Anyway, his path eventually guided him to the gates of Greshit, a fortified city that had somehow managed to stay afloat even after having most of its population decimated by Dracula's army. Within the city's walls, Trevor conversed with the townsfolk and soon encountered the legend of a sleeping soldier rumored to lie dormant beneath the city. While traversing the city streets, Trevor's attention was drawn to a distressing scene where two abusive priests were harassing an elderly man. Despite his initial inclination to walk away, Trevor intervened and, with considerable force, defeated the aggressors, heroically slashing off one of the thug's fingers with one strike of his whip. When guiding the elder back to safety, Trevor found out that he was the head of the Speakers, a group of nomad scholars popular for documenting stories and helping ones in need. After meeting the whole group, he found out that they were wrongly accused of the attacks perpetrated by Dracula's monstrous hordes and had fallen victim to persecution by the church. Influenced by the pleas of these elderly men, Trevor agreed to embark on a mission to locate the man's missing grandchild, who had ventured in search of the enigmatic sleeping soldier. In exchange for his assistance, Trevor secured the scholars' commitment to leave Greshit and seek refuge away from the church's oppression. Later, while venturing into the city's catacombs, he made a series of intriguing discoveries, including peculiar hot pipes and torches that seemingly ignited of their own accord. Soon he had a perilous encounter with a cyclops, a monster known for transforming its victims into lifeless stone statues. With unwavering determination, Trevor engaged in a fierce battle and emerged victorious, liberating one of the Cyclops' unfortunate victims. To his astonishment, the freed individual turned out to be none other than the granddaughter of the Elder, a young woman named Cypher Balnadis. Guided by her unwavering determination to unravel the mystery of the sleeping soldier, Cypher's quest led her to Trevor's side. Despite his skepticism, Trevor managed to persuade her to return to her grandfather, thereby relieving his anxieties because he remained convinced that the tale of the sleeping soldier was nothing more than a fanciful myth. Upon their return to the Elder's abode, Trevor and Cypher engaged in another heated exchange regarding the existence of the enigmatic sleeper, as apparently these catacombs were an integral part of Dracula's castle, as detailed in his family's writings. Amid this dispute, Trevor made a firm suggestion to the Elder that he should leave Greshit along with his group. However, the old man's unwavering conviction compelled Trevor to stay in the town until sundown. As Trevor stepped out of the Speaker's dwelling, he found himself surrounded by a gathering of priests who promptly escorted him to the bishop, who, in a surprising turn of events, offered Trevor the chance to spare his life, but in return ordered Trevor's immediate departure from Greshit. Returning to the persecuted Speakers, Trevor shared the disturbing news of the bishop's malevolent intentions, which included the execution of these scholars to satiate the public's questioning eyes on the church, who was responsible for this situation in the first place. He passionately urged them to leave the city to avoid this dreadful fate. However, the Speakers, especially Cypher, turned a deaf ear to his pleas and were resolved to confront their adversaries head-on to fight their own battles. Trevor, moved by their unwavering determination, took it upon himself to conceal the Speakers within the catacombs and confronted the townspeople of Greshit alone, battling his way through the priests. As a relentless pursuit by an angry mob overwhelmed him, salvation arrived in the form of Cypher, who harnessed her powerful magic for the first time in the series to protect Trevor. With renewed determination, Trevor managed to persuade the townsfolk that the true culprits behind the monstrous attacks were the bishop and his cohorts from the church. Naturally, the enraged mob turned against the leader of the priests and rallied under his banner as Trevor provided them with the knowledge needed to combat Dracula's abominable minions. Together, they confronted and vanquished the menacing creatures, including a menacing night creature named Blue Fangs. However, their triumph came at a cost, as the ground beneath them grew unstable, cracking open and causing Trevor and Cypher to plummet deeper into the catacombs, far below where they had initially started their journey. Navigating the treacherous catacombs, Trevor and Cypher eventually stumbled upon a mysterious coffin, and in a tense moment of uncertainty, Trevor was convinced that this was Dracula himself, while Cypher held firm in her belief that this figure was the rumored sleeping soldier. Misinterpreting the intentions of this mysterious vampire, Trevor engaged him in combat, managing to land a slash on his chest. However, his triumph was short-lived, as he found himself overpowered and pinned down by his opponent. Desperation and determination compelled Trevor to take drastic action and thrust a knife into the vampire's chest, fully aware that this act might come at the cost of his own life. To his astonishment, the vampire chose not to retaliate and instead introduced himself as Alucard, Dracula's son. Eventually, Alucard revealed that he had been waiting for a hunter and a scholar to find him, according to a prophecy foretold by the speakers. Convinced by Alucard's assertions that the three of them could stand united to defeat Dracula, Trevor assumed the mantle of leadership, and together they embarked on their journey to take down the Dark Vampire Lord before he could eliminate mankind from the surface of the earth. How did Trevor take Dracula down alongside Cypher Belnades and Alucard? Recognizing the gravity of their mission to defeat Dracula, Trevor and Cypher turned to Alucard for critical information, who imparts crucial knowledge about Dracula's ability to teleport his castle, leading to the trio's realization that they must find a way to thwart this ability in order to mount an effective attack on his army. Their strategy hinges on preventing the castle from shifting location, enabling them to confront Dracula on their own terms. This is when Trevor proposes the trio take a trip to the Belmont estate, as it is a repository of invaluable knowledge and artifacts amassed over the generations during the Belmont family's relentless battle against monsters. He believes that the answers they seek may be hidden within the vaults of the estate. Setting out on their journey, Trevor's camaraderie with Cypher eventually grew, even if his interactions with Alucard were mostly punctuated by verbal sparring. While camping for the night, the group is ambushed by night creatures and manages to fend off the assailants together. Upon reaching the Belmont estate, Cypher employs her magical abilities to unlock the vault, revealing that the Belmont family had a long-standing history with magical arts to keep their knowledge concealed from prying eyes. The underground vault reveals a treasure trove of information and equipment, greatly impressing Cypher, although Alucard is seemingly disturbed by a collection of vampire skulls that paints a grim picture of the Belmont family's relentless pursuit of his kind. As they all go through the Belmont hold looking for answers, Trevor, in a moment of discovery, unearths the coveted Morning Star whip and promptly claims it as his own. Within the vault, Cypher also uncovers evidence that a member of the Belmont family had already been working on a solution to Dracula's castle translocation ability, developing a spell to anchor the castle in one location. While the spell was incomplete, Cypher realized that she had the knowledge and capability to finish it. As the trio began working on their respective tasks, a horde of night creatures descended upon the estate, determined to breach the underground vault. Naturally, Trevor, Cypher and Alucard are forced into a life-and-death struggle to repel the attacking monsters, but with little time at hand, Alucard and Cypher resume working on the spell while Trevor faces the night creatures, employing all the weapons and abilities at his disposal, including the Morning Star Whip. Even if he was on the brink of defeat with multiple monsters charging at him, Trevor's combat skills prevailed, and he defeated the invading creatures just as Cypher and Alucard's efforts bore fruit. Together, they summoned Dracula's castle to the Belmont estate's location and mount it right on top of the Belmont hold. Following this, the trio embarks on an arduous assault on the castle, fighting their way through Dracula's vampiric army until they finally face the Dark Vampire Lord himself. Trevor wields the Morning Star Whip, dealing a powerful blow to Dracula, but even that is not enough to vanquish him. In a climactic battle, Dracula unleashes his Dark Inferno spell, which threatens to consume them, but the trio unite their strengths and pushes back the devastating attack. In the climactic showdown, Alucard, standing in close proximity to his father during the trio's united counterattack, engages in a brutal and tumultuous melee duel with him. Their fierce combat wreaks havoc upon the castle, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Now, as the confrontation reaches its zenith, Dracula's indomitable resolve begins to crumble when they arrive at Alucard's childhood chamber. Overwhelmed by a complex mix of emotions, Dracula realizes that he has become the very thing his wife, Lisa, would have detested, and permits his son to impale him with a wooden stake through the heart. Trevor and Cypher soon join Alucard in the chamber, sealing Dracula's fate as Trevor beheads Dracula and Cypher uses her magic to reduce his his remains to ashes, ensuring his permanent demise. With Dracula's reign of terror coming to a brisk end and the trio's mission accomplished, Trevor, recognizing the importance of the Belmont estate, entrusts its stewardship to Alucard, who had previously contemplated ending his own life. Cypher, however, persuades Trevor to continue their shared adventures, firmly believing that Trevor's destiny lies in the ongoing battle against evil. Soon they bid their farewells to Alucard, embarking on their journey through Wallachia with an aim to locate the Speakers, and thereafter head towards Braila to confront the remnants of Dracula's army. Trevor Belmont's adventures after Dracula's demise. Season 3 of the Castlevania animated series mostly covered the devastation that the aftermath of Dracula's death brought about in all of Wallachia. But the focal point here was a rather unconventional journey for Trevor as he traverses the countryside along with Cypher, dedicating months to pursue the rest of the night creatures after Dracula's forge masters were temporarily out of the picture. Their travels eventually led them to the town of Lindenfeld, where they offered their services to the townspeople and formed an alliance with the town's judge. This season mostly showcased Trevor's willingness to go along with Cypher's vision, which is evidently motivated by a deep desire to please her. However, it becomes apparent that this shared adventure has taken a toll on him, as he yearns for a simple indulgence like a drink of beer, demonstrating the enduring influence of his past habits when he was mostly on his own. In his moments of solitude, particularly during a reflective walk in the woods, Trevor takes a pause to consider the course of his recent life, as he is not entirely content with how he had relinquished control, letting Cypher's desires guide their path. But this was the sort of companionship that he had been missing throughout his adult life, so it is quite natural that being with Cypher had seemingly rendered him quite malleable, and some may say even whipped. Soon the duo acquaint themselves with the enigmatic Saint Germain, who initially introduces himself as a well-read scholar with a history of being a noble advisor in many European courts. Now, Saint Germain concealed the truth of being an alchemist who was actually in search of the infinite corridor where he had lost the love of his life and aimed to bring her back to the land of the living, no matter the cost. He showed an uncanny interest in the priory, which was owned by the creepy monks of the town, who mostly kept to themselves and somehow even justified Dracula's reign of terror. Saint Germain initially believed that the priory had an opening to the infinite corridor, but upon looking around, he realized that the monks held a night creature captive in the basement. Horrified, he went to Trevor and Cypher, and together they delved deeper into their investigative work, finally uncovering a sinister plot by the monks to open a portal to hell. During a late-night conversation in bed, Trevor confides in Cypher about his concerns regarding Saint Germain. He draws parallels between the man's behavior and his own prior to the events of coming across Cypher or Alucard. It troubles him that Saint Germain is willing to drop his guard so quickly, underscoring his deep need for companionship, which sort of gives way that it is not loneliness that plagues him, but rather the enduring sense of loss. And this is further mirrored in Saint Germain's own desperation for friendship, as Trevor and Cypher team up with Saint Germain and the judge to confront the monks of the priory and the night creatures. They ultimately prevent the demon's nefarious plans to resurrect Dracula. It takes Saint Germain to sacrifice himself inside the infinite corridor and seal it, causing an end to this menace. Just when Trevor and Cypher thought that the worst was behind them, they stumbled across a shocking revelation. The judge, who had presented himself as a benevolent leader, had concealed dark secrets from the town and had confessed to his gruesome pleasures right before his death, which included the murder of children in a manner similar to how he orchestrated the death of the leader of the monks. This man was unbelievably twisted, as he begged Trevor to burn down his house to get rid of the evidence that would connect him to the missing children in Lindenfeld. He literally lured these kids near an apple tree, only to leave them to fall to their depths on a bed of pikes. The judge even collected their little shoes as souvenirs of his accomplishment and locked them in a room, which explains why he had asked Trevor and Cypher to leave no evidence behind. As the town of of Lindenfeld is left in ruins, consumed by the chaos, this grim discovery marks a turning point, and as they depart from the now devastated town, Trevor acknowledges the passage of their adventure, highlighting the shift from living Cypher's vision to embracing his own viewpoint on how he wants to delegate their lives in the future. Throughout the majority of Season 4, Trevor and Cypher find themselves deeply entrenched in what Trevor describes as his way of life. They are immersed in the land of Wallachia, functioning as seasoned monster hunters, confronting a relentless parade of nightmarish adversaries. These foes range from night creatures and skeleton knights to warlocks, foul goblins, rogue vampires, and even humans who sympathize with death. But this array of horrors takes a heavy toll on their spirits. Even Cypher's usually cheerful and light-hearted demeanor begins to sour under the unrelenting strain of having to fight a band of monsters every night. Both of them seem to get into frequent arguments as they are seemingly exhausted from continuously fighting to thwart uprisings that hint towards Dracula's resurrection. As shocking as it may sound, their journey leads them back to Targovist, the place where Dracula's reign of terror initially took root after his wife was wrongly executed on a witch trial. Exhausted and locked in combat with rogue vampires loyal to Dracula's legacy, Trevor and Cypher are thrust into yet another grueling trial. It is during these trying circumstances that Trevor discovers a series of fortuitous upgrades to his arsenal, starting with a magical dagger, which later proves to be a key element in the series finale. Anyway, their path takes a decisive turn when Varney emerges as the mastermind behind the escalating plight of the undead and Dracula's potential resurrection. Amidst the remnants of Targovist, they encounter Zamfir, who provides aid and insights about the city's current state. In a reflection of Trevor's assertion of control, he takes charge of their situation. With a determined focus on devising a sound and calculated plan, he and Cypher engage in careful deliberation, putting their exhaustion aside. Thus, we witness that the Belmont is finally back in action as the ultimate professional monster hunter, resuming his task of plotting the next steps to carefully end the forces of the night. As they continue their journey, Trevor and Cypher force Zamfir to take them to the underground court, where apparently the royalty is hiding in safety. In here too, Trevor's good fortune persists as he uncovers a magical stone, secures a combat cross, obtains an empty gourd to be filled with holy water, and adds enhancements to his magical dagger which he had previously obtained. Soon after, they find out that Zamfir is in denial of the royalty being dead in Targovist. The confrontation with Varney and Ratko within the underground court unfolds, with Trevor facing Ratko in a grueling battle, ultimately emerging victorious with the aid of Zamfir, who sacrifices herself in the process. After taking down Ratko and his troop of night creatures, Trevor and Cypher go in search of Varney, who has already jumped through a transfer mirror into Dracula's castle. Naturally, the duo also goes through the mysterious transfer mirror that transports them back to Dracula's castle, where they reunite with Alucard. A series of battles follow as the trio face off against the cult of Dracula in the form of mini-bosses, the dungeon boss and his accompanying adversaries. Although we witness remarkable combative powers from all three of them, Trevor's resourcefulness really goes up a notch as he gives us some double whip action, slicing through his opponents with a certain pizzazz. All the weapons he has collected before comes into use here, as the combination of his combat toss with holy water allow the trio to overcome significant challenges. Trevor Belmont's fight with death. So, remember how Varney jumped through the transfer mirror and was nowhere to be found? Well, in a very shocking turn of events, Varney unveils his true identity as the embodiment of death itself, having been impersonating as a filthy vampire in Dracula's court for centuries. It was also revealed that Death was actually the alchemist who manipulated Saint-Germain to open a portal to hell and resurrect Dracula. The revelation unfolds that Dracula had harbored intentions of exterminating all life on Earth, which would have bestowed death with immeasurable power. But this potential was thwarted when Dracula was killed at the hands of Trevor, Alucard and Cypher. So, Death now requires Saint-Germain's assistance to resurrect Dracula and merge his soul with that of his wife, plunging them both into madness. In short, Death's sinister aim is to exploit Dracula and Lisa's deranged state within the Rebis to usher in unprecedented human devastation and benefit from it. As Saint-Germain realized that he was simply a pawn in Death's mega plan and realized what hell he had called upon Earth by infusing the Rebis with Dracula and Lisa's soul, his conscience drove him to aid Trevor in thwarting this ritual. Although Death erected a formidable force field to keep Trevor, Alucard and Cypher at bay, the Belmonts managed to breach the force field. This is when Saint-Germain goes on to reposition the portal behind the Rebis and signals Trevor to attack, who uses his combat crossknife in combination with the holy water to successfully slice through the Rebis and stop Dracula's resurrection into a weird-looking golem once more. The resultant explosion propels Trevor and Saint-Germain outside, and during the struggle, Trevor's crossknife shatters, causing a shard to lodge into Saint-Germain's chest. Following the defeat of the Rebis with the assistance of Alucard, Cypher and a remorseful Saint-Germain, Trevor makes a resolute decision. He chooses to confront Death and put an end to his malevolent scheming, which has probably now been evident since the time Dracula first turned. Trevor tried reasoning with Death, saying that both of them are relics of a bygone era, born to be relentless killers, and that it was time to put an end to the cycle of bloodshed. Trevor viewed himself as a remnant of a world that should make way for those who can truly build a new future. In a tense showdown with Death, Trevor initially finds himself incapable of inflicting any harm as the malevolent entity overpowers him. Undeterred, he rises to his feet and deploys the Morning Star Whip to unleash a barrage of enormous projectile flames, creating a substantial distraction to gain an advantage. Seizing a moment of vulnerability, Trevor abandons the Morning Star Whip, quickly maneuvering behind Death to reassemble the magical dagger composed of 3 separate pieces, all of which he had acquired in Targovist, and reactivate the weapon's dormant magical powers. With unwavering resolve, Trevor stabs Death in the head just as the flames subside, unleashing the dagger's potent magical energy. As Death erupts into a cataclysmic explosion, it seems that Trevor himself is erased from existence. Honestly, this particular fight scene between Trevor and Death truly stands out as a crowning jewel in the series' legacy, drawing the curtains on its intricate storylines with a grand climax. The creators have left no stone unturned, delving deep into the realms of gothic horror and providing fans who have journeyed through the dark corridors of Konami's cherished franchise with a treasure trove of nostalgia. But it really does not end here, and for good reason, as 2 weeks later, following the presumed demise of Trevor in his battle against Death, significant developments unfold. Alucard, alongside his love interest Greta, diligently works to restore the castle, envisioning it as a place where people can live and thrive. Meanwhile, Cypher contemplates returning to the Speakers, as she is indeed pregnant with Trevor's child. Now Alucard and Greta, recognizing the value of Cypher's presence in shaping a brighter future, persuade her not to leave and express their desire for her to remain with them. As they discuss the idea of naming their new village Belmont, a horse arrives carrying a hooded man slung over the saddle. When Cypher and Alucard rush to the horse, they discover that the rider is none other than a very beat-up Trevor, who reveals that after stabbing Death in the head, Saint-Germain opened the infinite corridor and placed him inside, thereby shielding him from annihilation. Next, Trevor awoke near the Danube and began the arduous journey back to reunite with Cypher. He also goes on to reveal the mystery behind the defeat of Death, which lies in the dagger he found in Targovist. Trevor was well aware by enacting a murder-suicide pact with God by using the weapon, killing Death meant suicide for him, given the dagger's lethal nature. With his miraculous survival, this remarkable stroke of luck returns him to the very place he once lost everyone dear to him, only to forge a new family and a thriving community from the ashes on the same hallowed ground. How is Castlevania Nocturnes' Richter Belmont related to Trevor Belmont? Throughout its history, the Castlevania series has been known for its shifting family tree of Belmonts, but it is possible to speculate on the familial connection between Trevor and Richter Belmont in Castlevania Nocturne. Now, we already know that the Netflix series primarily follows Trevor and Cypher, along with Alucard, as they embark on quests, including their mission to confront Dracula and, well, Death. Even though the original Castlevania series has concluded, we already know that Castlevania Nocturne continues the Belmont legacy, with Richter Belmont set within the French Revolution era. Castlevania possesses two well-defined Belmont family lineages, the one originating from the original series and the simplified one stemming from the 2010 reboot series of Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Although the anime does not provide explicit details about Trevor's family lineage, apart from the obvious fact that he is a descendant of Leon Belmont, it remains challenging to precisely determine the number of generations that separate Trevor from Richter. Firstly, Castlevania Nocturne is set during the French Revolution, a period spanning over 3 centuries after the original series. Furthermore, Richter consistently appears as a direct descendant of Trevor, implying that Trevor serves as Richter's forefather from multiple generations back. Now we know that the conclusion of Castlevania Season 4, mirroring the games, reveals that Sypha is pregnant with Trevor's child. Based on these elements and Richter's absence in the Lords of Shadow timeline, it is reasonable to assume that Richter's family tree aligns with the original timeline. Within this context, Richter is established as a distant grandchild of Trevor, but determining the precise number of intervening generations requires an exploration of Castlevania's intricate Belmont family tree. In the original timeline, the Belmont family lineage unfolds with Richter as the son of Just Belmont, who is the grandson of Simon Belmont, the protagonist of a Castlevania game. Simon, in turn, is the great-grandson of Christopher Belmont, though it remains uncertain whether this lineage passes through Soliel or Gerhard Belmont. Now, Christopher, as the son of Frederick Belmont, is also the offspring of Trevor Belmont and Sypha Bernardis. Consequently, Richter's placement as the 9th generation descendant of Trevor perfectly aligns with the time frame of Castlevania Nocturne. It is essential to consider that the Lords of Shadow's family line simplifies the Belmont lineage, presenting Simon as Trevor's son. While Castlevania Nocturne may draw inspiration from this simplified timeline, significant alterations would be necessary to account for Richter's birth during the French Revolution. But it should be noted that the Castlevania series boasts a convoluted timeline spanning over 30 main games, and given the series' history of retcons, it is likely that Castlevania Nocturne may introduce some changes to Richter's lineage. Nevertheless, the aforementioned explanation offers insights into how Richter is related to Trevor in the mainline game series, a relationship that Castlevania Nocturne might adapt or modify as it sees fit in the future seasons. Trevor Belmont's gaming history in the Castlevania franchise. Now that we have fully covered Trevor Belmont's backstory adapted within Netflix animated series, let's take a look at his OG backstory and enigmatic conquests featured in the gaming history of the Castlevania franchise. Trevor Belmont in Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. In the year 1476, Wallachia was plunged into chaos as horrifying monsters, previously only spoken of in legends, began to terrorize its people under the command of Count Dracula. The Eastern Orthodox Church, deeply concerned by these developments, dispatched its troops to quell the threat. With no communication from Wallachia for a considerable time, the Pope turned to the Belmont family as a last resort. Until now, the Belmonts, ostracized by society, resided on the fringes. But Trevor Belmont, a descendant of Leon Belmont, stepped forward to end the oppression in Wallachia. During his quest, Trevor garnered valuable allies who would join him in the battle against Dracula. The first was Grant Danasty, a rebel fighter who had been transformed into a demon by Dracula and stationed as a guardian in the clock tower. After Trevor vanquished his demonic form, Grant returned to his human self and allied with Trevor. The second companion was the witch Sypha Bernardis, who was part of the church's hunting party assigned to confront Dracula and had assumed a male guise to move freely within a society that feared witches. Her encounter with the Cyclops led to her petrification, but Trevor's intervention liberated her from the curse, prompting her to join his cause. The last ally to join their ranks was Alucard, Dracula's son, who opposed his father's malevolent actions and sought to stop him. Recognizing the need for a powerful ally, Alucard embarked on a quest to find one. When Trevor encountered Alucard, a duel ensued, with Trevor emerging victorious. Although Alucard had withheld his full strength in the duel, he recognized Trevor as a genuine, potent vampire hunter capable of defeating his father. Together, these four heroes journeyed to Dracula's throne room and engaged in a fierce battle with the Count. Ultimately, it was Trevor who delivered the final blow, utilizing the ancestral vampire killer whip against Dracula for the first time. After their intense confrontation, they witnessed the castle's collapse on a nearby mountain cliff. With Dracula vanquished, the monsters dissipated and Wallachia finally found peace.
That crest! Are you the Devil Forge Master?
That whip. Could he be?
Answer me! Are you the Devil Forge Master?
I am.
Then this is the hour of your death.
Trevor Belmont in Castlevania Curse of Darkness. Despite Wallachia's initial prosperity, it soon faced a series of hardships including poverty and famine, particularly pronounced in the vicinity of Dracula's castle. Shortly after Dracula's defeat, Trevor Belmont sensed that all was not well. However, he chose to disregard these feelings as a temporary omen. But 3 years later, during his investigations, he received information regarding a cult of Dracula worshippers. Subsequently, he embarked on an inquiry that led him to an abandoned monastery, where he encountered a man he suspected to be a Devil Forge master. Trevor promptly engaged the man, expecting a powerful confrontation, but to his surprise, he effortlessly defeated the individual, who was believed to be a servant that had betrayed Dracula during the war 3 years earlier. This man introduced himself as Hector before they parted ways. Trevor continued his journey, eventually encountering Isaac, the Devil Forge master he had been actually pursuing. Their battle was intense, with Isaac proving to be an indomitable adversary. Isaac, however, abruptly departed upon the arrival of Hector. After lightly wounding Trevor with his spear, he declared his intention to eliminate both Trevor and Hector eventually. Now determined to defeat Isaac, Trevor chased him to an abandoned castle, with Hector eventually catching up. A relayed information about a concealed chamber beneath the castle grounds indicated that Isaac was indeed present. Initially, Trevor found it inconceivable that the seal guarding the chamber could be opened without the blood of his clan. However, he realized that Isaac had fought him to draw his blood and enable the chamber's access. This compelled Trevor to gauge Hector's newfound partner and challenge him to a duel. During their battle, Hector demonstrated the growth of his abilities, proving himself worthy to enter the chamber Isaac had fled to. Eventually, Trevor broke the seal and allowed Hector to progress while instructing him to show no mercy. Upon Hector's arrival at the center of the infinite corridor, Trevor unexpectedly sensed a surge of power emanating from the newly resurrected Dracula's castle. In bewilderment, he suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his back as Isaac revealed that it was actually Hector's actions that had reawakened the castle. Hector's use of demonic magic during his battle with the castle's guardian inadvertently undid the seal. With his spear, Isaac lightly wounded Trevor and abandoned him to die. But Trevor's survival proved remarkable, attributed to his extraordinary stamina, surpassing that of an ordinary human who would have succumbed to such an injury. He later returned to his wife Cypher and continued the legacy of the Belmont bloodline. Trevor Belmont in Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. Given the limited information available about Trevor's 1476 quest, Elgos faced challenges in summoning him through conventional means within this game. Instead, they devised an unconventional method, drawing upon the memories embedded in the vampire killers of Simon Belmont, Richter Belmont, and Jonathan Morris. This unique approach allowed them to confront the stimulated Trevor and gain a first-hand understanding of his qualities and characteristics. Notably, this process was made possible by Hermina's tenuous connection to the Lecard family, which, although relatively weak, enabled the activation of these memories. After successfully beating all three memories featuring Trevor, they would finally be able to summon him. Trevor Belmont in Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. While Trevor does not physically appear in the game, a zombie posing as him is discovered in the Reverse Colosseum. This undead impersonator is accompanied by two other zombies masquerading as Grand Dynasty and Cypher Bernardus. All three are encountered together in a boss fight in this area. These evil duplicates are created with the intent of bewildering Alucard and serve as a tribute to their previous collaboration during the events of Dracula Draculas Curse. In addition to this boss encounter, Trevor makes a brief cameo within Alucard's memories. During a conversation with Maria Renard about Richter Belmont's whereabouts, Alucard mentions that he personally knows a Belmont, accompanied by an 8-bit spirit of Trevor from Dracula's Curse in a thought bubble. This trio of zombies also make an appearance in Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, where they are found in a special area known as the Nest of Evil, where many other boss characters from the previous Castlevania games can be fought. Other appearances of Trevor Belmont in the Castlevania franchise. Till now, we specifically discussed Trevor Belmont's appearances within the main canon of the Castlevania franchise. Now let's take a look at his lesser-known appearances outside the gaming arena. Trevor Belmont in Captain N, the Game Master. In an episode of Captain N, titled Return to Castlevania, a reference is made to Trevor. Simon Belmont, his descendant, visits Trevor's grave in the episode. Notably, the image on the tombstone depicts Trevor with a strikingly similar physical appearance to Simon. Within the episode, the Count, in the form of the Poltergeist King, challenges Trevor's reputation by claiming that his legendary accomplishments were all falsehoods. This assertion prompts Simon and his companions to embark on a quest to restore the honor of the Belmont family name. It is important to mention that in this animated TV series, Simon is portrayed as Trevor's great-grandson, deviating from the established canon where that role belongs to Christopher. Trevor Belmont in Castlevania Judgment. Now, this game is actually set completely out of the main canon of the gaming lore. Here, Galamoth hatches a scheme to send the Time Reaper, a powerful entity from 10,000 years in the future, back in time, with the intent of eliminating his rival Dracula and reshaping history. Subsequently, a man named Aeon becomes aware of this plan and takes action by summoning champions from various historical eras into a rift in dimensions. His goal is to identify the chosen one capable of thwarting Galamoth's servant, and Trevor just happens to be one of the selected warriors. With his ever-present desire for battles, Trevor actively seeks out Alucard and Cypher with the motive to experience what it would be like to face them at the peak of their powers. In this game, Trevor's attire consists of a brown vest and pants, complemented by silver and brown armor plates that provide coverage for his arms, legs and torso. It is also worth noting that in this portrayal, his hair is depicted as dark, deviating from Kojima's artwork where it appears brown. Additionally, he sports an eye patch to conceal his damaged eye. Trevor Belmont in Pachislot Akumajo Dracula. Pachislot Akumajo Dracula is a Pachislot game developed by Konami Parlor Entertainment, offering a spin-off experience within the Castlevania universe. The game draws its aesthetics from Castlevania Curse of Darkness and features a prominent cast of characters from the series, with Trevor Belmont taking the lead role. Here, Trevor Belmont, known as Ralph C. Belmondo in Japan, assumes the central role in the Pachislot Akumajo Dracula trilogy. He is a vampire hunter and a descendant of Leon Belmont, and due to their supernatural abilities, the Belmont family faced exile from Wallachia. The first two games depict an older version of Trevor marked by a scar across his cheek, which resulted from the events of Castlevania III, Dracula's Curse. The third game portrays him without the scar, indicating its placement within the particular game's timeline. Throughout all the games in this trilogy, Trevor aligns himself with Angela in the first two games, while the third game sees him joined by his companions Alucard and Cypher. In each installment, his overarching objective remains the same: the defeat of Dracula. Trevor Belmont in Castlevania Labyrinth of Love, Castlevania Labyrinth of Fire, and Castlevania Vampire Hunter. Around 2018, Konami released 3 spin-off slot games centered on Trevor in overseas markets, expanding on the Castlevania Curse of Darkness universe. These games include Castlevania Labyrinth of Love and its sequel, Castlevania Labyrinth of Fire, which were aimed at North American audiences, and Castlevania Vampire Hunter, tailored for the Australian market. In these games, players follow Trevor's journey as he confronts Dracula and faces off against various minions, often accompanied by his pumpkin innocent devil. The gameplay features jackpot bonus rounds where Trevor engages in battle. Furthermore, alternate versions of each game were introduced, focusing on Hector's adventures instead of Trevor's. In these slot games, Trevor assumes the role of a wild, real symbol in Labyrinth of Love and Labyrinth of Fire, and serves as the highest ranked regular symbol in Vampire Hunter. How does Trevor Belmont's character from the gaming lore differ from its portrayal in the Castlevania animated series? Now, we know that Trevor Belmont is celebrated for his exceptional skills, attributed not only to his thorough training as a hunter, but also to his upbringing within the Belmont clan during his era. While many aspects of Trevor and his story have been faithfully adapted into the Netflix series, it is important to note the twists and revisions that were made by the show's creator, Warren Ellis, to better fit the narrative he aimed to convey throughout the 4 seasons of the Castlevania animated series. To begin with the similarities between the character in the games and the animated series, both versions depict Trevor Belmont as a direct descendant of Leon Belmont, connection highlighted in the games and later affirmed in the Netflix series. Additionally, both these versions existed in 15th century Europe and experienced social isolation due to their Belmont lineage being excommunicated by the church and then ostracized from society. They also wield the vampire killer whip and demonstrate equal versatility in melee combat. In both iterations, they go on to form alliances with Cypher and Alucard, working together to ultimately achieve the goal of vanquishing Dracula. However, there are notable differences between the show and the original gaming lore. Trevor is portrayed as the last surviving Belmont in the Netflix series, whereas in the games, the clan is shown to be still alive and active, though operating outside of the mainstream society. Their personalities also diverge, with the game version of Trevor being a chivalrous and proud warrior, while the animated series depicts him as more of a pessimistic and occasionally inebriated character who takes a cynical approach to life after being on his own ever since he was 12 years old. The show further goes on to introduce a narrative where the Belmont clan is exiled by the church, leading to their persecution, while in the games, the church actually cooperates with the Belmont clan in times of crisis. Furthermore, the animated series equips Trevor with a Morning Star weapon, which he never possessed in the games. Lastly, the Netflix series also portrays Trevor as delivering the final blow to Dracula after Alucard's extensive contribution, whereas in the games, Trevor is capable of taking on the Dark Vampire Lord and defeating Dracula on his own. Well, there are likely more similarities and differences than we have covered here, but these are some points that we found to be more essential to the character and more relatable to the topic of this video. Moving on. How powerful is Trevor Belmont? When contemplating Trevor's combat proficiency and undeniable threat to any adversaries within the Castlevania franchise, it is quite apparent that while he might appear unmotivated for almost 90% of the time, the remaining 10% of his demeanor is dedicated to revealing his mind-bending skills of being a strategic genius in battle. Trevor's fighting abilities seem almost innate, to the extent that it is almost easy for the audience to overlook his lineage as a bearer of the vampire killer whip, plus his aptitude for combating an extensive array of creatures employing a wide range of melee combat techniques is outstanding. Whether he engages with careful premeditation or improvises on the spot, Trevor's competence borders on the extraordinary. While his primary weapon is the vampire killer whip, he also carries a short sword alongside some throwing daggers. However, if these armaments prove insufficient, he exhibits a keen inclination for utilizing whatever weapons are at his disposal or appropriating his adversary's armament and turning it against them. In cases where utmost lethality is necessary, he wields the Morning Star Whip, an instrument developed by his family to be the ultimate bane of the undead. The Morning Star's potency is such that even Dracula himself acknowledged it, prompting the Vampire Lord to shift to a more serious demeanor when the trio ambushed him. In addition to these formidable weapons, Trevor employs the Combat Cross, which enhances his efficacy in both close quarters and long-range combat scenarios. Plus, if you guys haven't noticed yet, his physical prowess surpasses that of an average human warrior, exhibiting a level of durability and strength that permits him to survive high falls and absorb blows from full-fledged vampires and night creatures without sustaining any significant injury. He even demonstrated the capability to harm Alucard during their first meet by delivering a wide gash across the Damphir's chest during a swift blade fight. In In moments when weapons are unavailable, Trevor is unhesitant to engage in hand-to-hand combat, employing his martial skills effectively against night creatures, including the more robust undead, such as werewolves. Nonetheless, amid all the acclaim for his combat skills, the legendary weapons, and his extensive arsenal, the most vital component that enables him to function as an exceptional killing machine is not the Morning Star, the combat cross, or even the dagger that ingeniously vanquished death. Trevor's most vital weapon is actually his intellect. Many martial artists understand that while a weapon may be potent, its effectiveness predominantly relies on the warrior and their strategic employment of that weapon. As previously mentioned, Trevor is indeed a tactical genius who embodies the spirit of a true warrior, prioritizing the use of his intellect before engaging in any potential conflict. This philosophy is a fundamental principle in martial arts, as instructors often emphasize that the very best way to emerge victorious in a confrontation is actually to evade it altogether or emerge from it unscathed. It may sound somewhat cautious, but individuals who have experienced life-threatening combat or warfare comprehend the value of life and understand the gravity of taking another's life. Trevor has consistently exemplified this mindset since his introduction to the show in Season 1. For instance, during the tavern scene, he was confronted by men seeking violence. Despite his capacity to eliminate them, he initially attempted to avoid eye contact. When that failed, he offered to yield a coin to deter any aggression. Subsequently, he endeavored to evade conversation and then denied being a Belmont when accused of it. Only when all other options were exhausted did he reluctantly resort to self-defense. Even when facing the arrogant priest in Greshit later in the season, Trevor exhibited courtesy. On 2 separate occasions, he demonstrated his readiness to yield before having to resort to physical defense. Apart from that, Trevor's keen mind is evident in his proficiency in solving puzzles and analyzing his adversaries, which significantly contributes to his survival when navigating unfamiliar terrains and combating various night creatures. He excels in reading situations and understanding the monsters he encounters, drawing upon his training and knowledge from the Belmont family archives. Even Alucard did not recognize the propensity of death during the final season, but Trevor knew exactly what to do. Moreover, Trevor has proven to be an effective leader, capable of delegating tasks to ensure success against the undead repeatedly. This innate leadership quality was recognized even by Alucard, who encouraged Trevor to accept his role as a leader, particularly during the scene at the Belmont Hold that was overrun by night creatures. Trevor further exhibited his leadership qualities when assisting the citizens of Greshit in defending their city against night creature attacks. Additionally, he took the initiative to sever Dracula's head when Alucard hesitated to end his father's reign of terror for good. Trevor's resourcefulness even extends to post-battle activities such as collecting valuable monster parts to trade for coins. He also encouraged the judge of Lindenfeld to organize an attack on the monks of the priory to prevent an impending demon invasion. Plus, in the heat of battle in Dracula's castle, where the trio had to fight mini-boss characters before confronting death, Trevor strategically severed the arm of a vampire who had paralyzed Cypher, triggering a chain reaction that led to the demise of all 4 vampires before jointly confronting Dragon. In an act of selflessness, he chose to stay behind and confront death, allowing everyone else to escape to safety. The sole drawback associated with Trevor is that, unlike his game iteration, he does not possess the ability to use and manipulate magic. This seems to have been a deliberate choice to emphasize Cypher's role as the resident witch of the group within the series. Despite this limitation, Trevor's vast array of skills and attributes exemplify a character who has been self-reliant since the age of 12. In the show, it can be surmised that he is in his late 20s or possibly 30. Imagining his potential if he had received comprehensive training in the ways of the Belmont family craft is truly remarkable given all that he has accomplished within the series. Marvelous verdict. By now, we can understand why the Castlevania animated series is considered to be the best on-screen gaming adaptation of all time. It sparks life into Trevor Belmont from the games and introduces him in the show as the final scion of the renowned family of vampire hunters, who stands as yet another instrument of destiny, molded and shaped by the harsh realities of the world. His journey is a testament to the struggle against fate as The more he resisted the path set before him, the more inexorably fate drew him towards his ultimate destiny. Once believed to be the last representative of a dwindling lineage, Trevor found himself amidst the ashes of his predecessors. It was in this crucible that he tapped into his inner warrior and pride, much like the phoenix rising from the eternal fire. In many ways, Trevor epitomizes the timeless wisdom as he harnessed the wealth of training and knowledge passed down through generations, discarding the futile and releasing the grip of spite that once tethered him to the past. Trevor's journey was profoundly shaped by the forging of invaluable friendships, particularly with Cypher and Alucard. In their company, he embarked on a quest to mete out justice, love, and illuminate a fresh path for the enduring Belmont legacy. When we started making this video, we really did not expect Trevor to be such a nuanced or multifaceted character. Now it is your turn to let us know your insights on the character in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.